Yes, I am getting the house at any price. Please, I have nowhere to go. Can I stay in that house? No, Madam Cecilia. Do you remember what you told me, Madam? You said I would always be a servant. You said I would never own anything.
Hello, welcome to Echoes of the Baobab Trees. Before we start, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach around the world. Let's begin. The auctioneer's hammer came down with a loud crack that echoed through the grand hall like thunder. Sold. To bidder number 17. A woman in a simple yellow dress rose from her seat in the back row. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were dry and steady. She walked toward the front of the room as every head turned to watch. The mansion on the hill, the one with 23 rooms, the marble fountain that never stopped running, the gates that had only ever opened to let servants in through the back, belonged to her now. And standing at the back of the room, clutching her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles had turned white, was the woman who had once owned it all. Madam Cecilia Onwuachi. The same woman who had once made her sleep on a mat in the kitchen. The same woman who had called her a worthless village rat every single morning. The same woman who had thrown her out in the rain, screaming that she would never be anything in life. Now that woman was walking toward her. Slowly. Carefully. With tears swimming in her eyes. Please, Madam Cecilia whispered, her voice so small it barely carried across the marble floor. Please, I have nowhere to go. Can I stay? Just for a few weeks. Until I find somewhere. The woman in the yellow dress, Chiamaka Okonkwo, looked at the face that had haunted her dreams for 10 years. And she smiled. Do you remember what you told me, madam? Chiamaka asked softly. You said I would always be a servant. You said I would never own anything. Madam Cecilia's lips trembled. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please. Chiamaka stepped closer. The room was so quiet you could hear the sweat dripping down people's faces. You can stay, Chiamaka said. Madam Cecilia's face crumbled with relief. But then Chiamaka added, so softly that only Madam Cecilia could hear. You can stay, and sleep on the kitchen mat. Just like you made me do. Madam Cecilia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. What would happen next would shock everyone in that room. But to understand how Chiamaka Okonkwo, a poor village girl who had once scrubbed toilets with her bare hands, became the most powerful woman in Enugu, we must go back 10 years. 10 years earlier. June 2014. The harmattan dust had not yet cleared, and the morning sun was climbing over the tin roofs of Umu's village. 12-year-old Chiamaka Okonkwo knelt by the stream, beating her mother's wrapper against a rock. Her hands were red from the cold water and cracked from the dry wind. Behind her, the other village girls laughed and splashed, but Chiamaka did not join them. Chiamaka. Chiamaka, come quickly. She looked up. Her younger brother, Ifani, was running down the path, waving a piece of paper. His eyes were red from crying. Mama has collapsed, he gasped. Papa says to come now. Chiamaka dropped the wrapper and ran. The wet cloth fell into the stream and began to float away, but she did not look back. That evening, Chiamaka sat beside her mother's bed, holding a hand that felt colder than the stream water. Her mother's breathing was shallow, her eyes closed. The village healer had come and gone, shaking his head. Your mother needs hospital medicine, Papa said quietly. He stood by the door, his face grey with worry. The kind they have in the city. The expensive kind. Chiamaka looked at him. How much? He told her. The number was so big it made her stomach hurt. Papa sat down heavily on a wooden stool. I have spoken to your mother's sister in Enugu. She knows a woman. A rich woman who needs a housemaid. They will pay us something in advance. It took a moment for his words to make sense. A housemaid. Chiamaka whispered. Who? You, my daughter. Papa could not look at her. You will go to Enugu and work for a wealthy madam. Just for a few months. Until we have enough for the medicine. The room was silent except for her mother's ragged breathing. Chiamaka looked at her mother's face. She remembered how Mama would stay awake all night weaving baskets to sell at the market. How she would give her own food to the children when there wasn't enough. How she would sing to them when they were scared. When do I leave? Chiamaka asked. 2 days later, Chiamaka stood outside the biggest gate she had ever seen. It was made of black iron, taller than 3 men, with gold tips at the top of each spike. Through the bars, she could see a house that looked like something from a dream: white walls, blue windows, a fountain spraying water into the air like diamonds. A small boy in a school uniform pressed a button on the wall. A voice crackled through the speaker. Yes. Madam, the new maid is here. The gate swung open with a soft hum. Chiamaka picked up her bag, a small sack containing 2 wrappers, a comb, and a photograph of her family, and walked through. She did not know that she would not walk out again for 3 years. Madam Cecilia Onwuachi was sitting in the living room when Chiamaka entered. The room was bigger than her entire house in the village. The floors were so shiny Chiamaka could see her own reflection. The furniture was white, like clouds. Madam Cecilia looked at her the way you might look at something stuck to the bottom of your shoe. So you're the village girl, she said. Her voice was sharp like broken glass. Turn around. Let me see you. Chiamaka turned slowly, her face burning. I'm thin. But you look strong. Madam Cecilia stood up and walked around her, circling like a hawk. Do you know how to clean? Really clean. Not that village scrubbing where you just throw water on everything. Yes, madam, Chiamaka whispered. Speak up. I can't hear you. Yes, madam. Madam Cecilia smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Good. Because if I find one speck of dust, one fingerprint, one single hair anywhere, you will clean it again until your fingers bleed. Do you understand? Yes, madam. Your mat is in the kitchen. Behind the stove. You will wake up at 4 a.m. every morning. You will not touch anything that does not belong to you. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not look at my husband. You will not play with my children. You are not family. You are not even a guest. You are a servant. And you will always be a servant. Is that clear? Chiamaka's eyes stung with tears she refused to let fall. Yes, madam. The first month was a blur of exhaustion. Chiamaka woke in the dark, before the birds, and scrubbed floors until her knees were raw. She washed mountains of laundry by hand because Madam Cecilia said the machine ruined the fabric. She polished silver until her reflection shone back at her. She peeled yams and cut vegetables and stirred pots until her arms ached. The kitchen mat was hard and thin. At night, she would lie awake, listening to the rats scratching in the walls, and think of her mother. The medicine money had been sent. Papa's letters said Mama was getting better. That was the only thing that kept her going. But the worst part was Madam Cecilia. Every day, the woman found something new to criticize. You call this clean? My toilet is dirtier than your entire village. Don't eat that. That food is for the family. You eat the leftovers. If there are any. Why are you walking like that? Stop dragging your feet like an animal. One afternoon, Chiamaka was cleaning the bedroom when she found a small gold bracelet on the floor. She picked it up carefully, planning to return it. Madam Cecilia walked in at that exact moment. What is that in your hand? Chiamaka held it out. I found it on the floor, madam. I was going to bring it to you. Madam Cecilia's eyes narrowed. She snatched the bracelet and examined it closely. Where did you hide the others? Chiamaka blinked. Others, madam. The other jewelry. The ones that have been disappearing from my room. Madam Cecilia grabbed Chiamaka's arm so hard it left marks. You little thief. You village rat. I brought you into my house and this is how you repay me. Chiamaka's heart pounded so fast she couldn't breathe. Madam, I swear, I never took anything, I only just found this one. Liar. Madam Cecilia dragged her out of the room by her ear. You will confess. You will tell me where you hid everything or I will beat it out of you. Little did Chiamaka know, this was only the beginning of her suffering. The truth about the missing jewelry would be revealed in the most shocking way, but not before her life changed forever. That night, Chiamaka cried into her kitchen mat until she had no tears left. Her ear was swollen where Madam Cecilia had pulled it. Her arms ached from the beating she had received. Through the wall, she could hear the family eating dinner. Laughing. Talking about school and work and holidays. She heard Madam Cecilia's husband say something. Then Madam Cecilia's sharp laugh. Then she heard something else. Footsteps. Someone was coming into the kitchen. Chiamaka quickly wiped her face and sat up. The kitchen door opened, and light spilled in. A boy stood there, holding a plate. It was Tond, the driver's son. He was about her age, with kind eyes and a smile that made her heart do something strange. I brought you food, he whispered. From the dinner. I hid it under my shirt. He held out the plate. Steam rose from rice and stew and a piece of meat. Chiamaka stared at it. Madam Cecilia said I can only eat leftovers. Madam Cecilia is asleep. And even if she wasn't, I don't care. Ton sat down on the floor beside her mat. You need to eat. You're too thin. Chiamaka took the plate. The food was still warm. She could not remember the last time she had eaten warm food. Thank you, she whispered. Ton smiled. What's your name? Chiamaka. Chiamaka, he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the word. That's beautiful. It means God is beautiful. She looked at him, surprised. You know Igbo. My mother taught me. Before she died. His voice was quiet. She used to say that names have power. That you should never say someone's name without meaning it. They sat together in the dark kitchen, two children who had lost too much too young. And for the first time in months, Chiamaka did not feel completely alone. But even as they talked, she did not know that this kindness would soon become a weapon used against her. 3 months later, the rains came. Water pounded against the mansion windows like angry fists. Thunder shook the walls. Lightning lit up the sky in flashes of white. Chiamaka was in the kitchen, washing the last of the dinner pots, when she heard shouting from upstairs. It was Madam Cecilia. And she was screaming. You what? Chiamaka froze, listening. Then footsteps pounded down the stairs. The kitchen door burst open. Madam Cecilia stood there, her face twisted with rage, rainwater dripping from her expensive hair. The jewelry, she hissed. More of it is gone. My diamond earrings. My grandmother's necklace. Chiamaka's blood turned cold. Madam, I swear. Don't you dare swear. Madam Cecilia grabbed her arm and dragged her out of the kitchen. I want to search your things. Now. They went to the small corner behind the stove where Chiamaka kept her bag. Madam Cecilia dumped everything onto the floor, the wrappers, the comb, the photograph. And then something fell out that made Chiamaka's heart stop. A gold earring. One single gold earring. Chiamaka stared at it. That's not mine. I've never seen it before. Madam Cecilia picked it up slowly. Her eyes when she looked at Chiamaka were cold as death. "You lying, thieving village rat." The truth was about to be revealed, but not in the way anyone expected. Someone in that house had planted the earring. And that someone was closer than Chiamaka could ever imagine. The rain was still falling when they threw her out. Madam Cecilia's husband held the gate open, his face ashamed but silent. Madam Cecilia stood under the porch, dry and warm, watching with a satisfied smile. "Take her things," she ordered. One of the guards threw Chiamaka's sack into the mud. Chiamaka stood in the rain, soaked to the bone, shivering uncontrollably. Her bag lay at her feet, the photograph of her family already turning to pulp in the water. "Go back to your village," Madam Cecilia called out. "Go back to your mud hut and your dirty stream. You will never be anything. You will always be nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing." Chiamaka looked up at the woman who had destroyed her. And in that moment, something inside her changed. The tears stopped. The shaking stopped. The fear stopped. She picked up her wet, muddy bag. She looked at the mansion one last time, at the white walls and blue windows and golden gates. And she made a promise. A promise she whispered to herself as the rain washed over her. "One day, I will come back. And when I do, this house will be mine." Madam Cecilia laughed. "Dream on, village girl. Dream on." But Chiamaka was not dreaming. She was planning. And she turned her back on the mansion and walked into the rain, not knowing that 10 years later, she would walk back through those gates as the owner. The bus to the village cost 50 naira. Chiamaka had 42. She stood at the motor park, dripping wet, counting her money over and over as if the numbers might magically increase. The last bus was about to leave. People pushed past her, umbrellas bumping, voices shouting. "Abeg, make we go. The rain is beating us. Driver, wait. I dey come." Chiamaka watched the bus doors close. Watched the taillights disappear into the grey rain. She had nowhere to go. She sat down on a concrete block and put her head in her hands. "Chiamaka." She looked up. A woman was standing there, holding an umbrella over her head. An older woman in a simple blue dress, with kind eyes and grey hair. "Auntie." It was her mother's sister. Auntie Nkechi. The one who had arranged the job in the first place. Auntie Nkechi's face crumbled when she saw the state of her. "What happened? What did that woman do to you?" Chiamaka tried to speak, but the words would not come. She just shook her head, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. Auntie Nkechi pulled her into a tight hug. "Come. Come with me. You will stay with me tonight. We will figure this out together." As they walked away from the motor park, Chiamaka looked back one more time toward the direction of the mansion. She did not know that this night would be the lowest point of her life. But she also did not know that from this low, she would rise higher than anyone could imagine. The road ahead was dark and uncertain. But for the first time since she left her village, Chiamaka was not walking it alone. Little did she know, someone else from the mansion had also been watching her leave. Someone who would one day change everything. Was the story interesting? Would you like to finish it, to know how she later became a successful woman? Type yes in the comment section below. Watch out for the part 2. Don't forget to like this video. Subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next powerful story. Trust me, the next story is even more shocking. See you in the next video.